Morning, everybody. Welcome to another week, another Masterclass Friday. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Photography Evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live once again from sunny, beautiful Atlanta. And for those of you who are new, welcome to our Friday Masterclass series here at Adobe Live. This is where the Adobe Evangelism team gets to spend an hour with you each on our various disciplines. So you get to see photography, graphic design, video, UX, UI design, and digital painting and drawing. So with that said, and today is Earth Day, that's right. So with that said, we're going to be taking a look at removing distractions, but a couple housekeeping. So if you are watching from YouTube like Lauren is, or Facebook like Edmund and Lisa are, that's cool. You can hang out there. And I'm sure there are other people watching that just didn't comment yet, but you can hang out there on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and wherever you might happen to be. But if you want to participate in the main chat, that will be at b.net/Adobe Live. So I put it up on the screen so you guys can check it out. But b.net/Adobe Live is where, that's the main chat I'll be looking at. So while I love the good morning from Sheila and the hi Terry from Matching Birthdays for Happiness and Stephanie and Jan and Alicia, that's great, but I may not see your comments going forward. So just, if you want me to see your comments, head over. Otherwise, let's talk about what we're going to do today. Today we're going to take a look at removing distractions, because once you photograph a subject and you post or hang or print or whatever that photograph is, once you're done with it, I'm assuming that you want people to look at the subject. You want people to look at the subject matter of whatever it was you photographed, because that's what you really want them to pay attention to. But if you have a distraction in the photo, then people will be diverting their attention away from the main subject and concentrate on the distraction. Now, a distraction could be anything. It could be literally, like somebody said, the light box behind my head. That could be distracting you. It could be just something encroaching into the sides or bottom or top of the image frame. It could be anything that's off in the distance that people are trying to say, what is that? And if they're spending time trying to figure out what is that, then they're not looking at the subject. So you want to eliminate anything that's going to take the attention away from what you want people to look at. And that's where a lot of photographers, especially with landscapes, we talk about leading lines, because we want to lead the viewer to the actual subject. So leading lines could be a pathway that takes them to the main subject. It could be a shoreline. It could be whatever. It could be trees, but you want people to be guided to what you want them to see. Because once they spend time looking at the distraction, they can't unsee it, so they'll constantly look at it and not be looking at enjoying the photo. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples up front. I always use these examples, so if you've seen me do this class before, you're just going to sit back for a couple minutes and see the same example again, and then we're going to do all different photos that I think for the most part I've not shown you guys. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to switch that off and switch over to me. There we go. All right, so I've got Lightroom open. I'll show you this first photo, and this is this isn't staged. This was something I photographed years ago at a high school reunion, and it was just a group of my friends standing out in the hallway. And when I got home, that's when I noticed the distraction, and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed for days because the distraction was just hilarious. So let's pop in this in full screen. And the distraction is my friend in the background does not have a huge afro. That is actually a plant. You can, or like a tree. You can see the branches of the tree here and here. And because he just happened to be standing perfectly in the center of it, I never noticed it when I was taking the picture. I never bothered trying to remove it in Photoshop because it would be a pain in the butt to remove. but it just always reminded me to, before you even, before you even snap the shutter, before you even press the button, take a quick glance at the subject. And if there's a distraction you can avoid the distraction before you even take the photograph. So I could have had him step a little bit over to his right and it would have been fine. Nobody would have been standing there with a tree afro. But this is the one that always reminds me, try and get it right in the camera first, and then worry about distractions you couldn't fix in the camera after in post. But this is one. And other distractions. I might have closed the doors if I could. Another friend of mine is standing over there by the banner. So the banner is kind of making you think, what does the rest of the banner say? So once we start looking for distractions, we can't not see them. So composing this shot if I'd ever had another chance to compose this exact shot, I would have absolutely had people move over more this way so that we don't see the banner. The doors would be closed. No one's standing in front of the tree, at least not their head. And he's tall, so that didn't help. But just removing those kinds of things. All right, but that's a perfect shot. All right, see, that's why I use it all the time. All right, here's another one, and this is a true story. This is one of my shots from Egypt. Oh, I need to undo this one. Hang on. Let's go into the develop module. Let's reset it. Let's see if we can reset it. Oh, maybe we can't. Oh, yes, we can. There we go. Okay. Had to go reset that one first. Because I had fixed it in the last time I used it. All right, let's, why is it taking so long to load? There we go. I don't know why that particular photo is taking so long to load, but we'll let it load. Anyway, this particular photo that's trying to load now is one that photographed in Egypt. Great pyramid, there it is. Sphinx in front. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Got it home, printed it out, made a big print, put it on the wall, and every time I walk past this photo, I'm distracted by one thing. And it was something I noticed. It's not something I could remove from the photo like in the camera. This is something I could have removed in Photoshop or Lightroom easily. But for whatever reason, I saw it before I made the print and I didn't remove it. I don't know why it's going out of focus now. Hang on. There's something going on with that. There we go. And what it is it's this. There is an antenna on top of this structure, this monument. And okay. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, there's an antenna there. And it's supposed to be there because, they use it. But that doesn't mean it has to be in my picture. And it would have taken me all of 2 seconds to take it out, and so that it has no antenna, and make the print after I take the antenna out. Because every time I walk past this photo, I had to take it off the wall. I had to redo it. Because every time I walk past this photo, I looked at that antenna. I'm not looking at anything else. I'm not looking at anything else in this timeless monument. I'm just looking at that antenna because it's driving me crazy. So there you go. All right. Kathy's saying, is this a replay? It's sounding very familiar. It might be the replay of a topic, but it is not a replay because I'm answering your question live. So it's real. But I always use those same 2 photos whenever I discuss removing distractions. So that might be why it's sounding like a replay to you. All right. Now we're going to move on to definitely one you've not seen. So this is definitely not a replay. Let's now start getting rid of some distractions that someone managed to abandon a tripod up there. I doubt it because it would have been blown off by now. So I think that's an antenna, but it could be a tripod. Never know. All right, so let's look at this one. So this was in Iceland. Beautiful horses there, and you look at the horse and you keep looking at what else? You look at the pole, you look at the barbed wire fence, you start thinking that you're distracted by that. You start saying, is this on a farm? Is it a free range horse? Like, where's this horse? Why am I looking at this fence? And that's why we don't want distractions, because you're not concentrating on the beauty of the animal here. You're concentrating on stuff that doesn't matter. Now, if this tells the story, like if there's something relevant to the fence that tells a story, you also have to remember that unless you're there to help tell that story, we don't know why the fence is there. So unless it's obvious that it's there for a reason, and you're not going to be standing next to the photo to explain it to everyone that walks by it, it's a distraction. So how do we get rid of this? So we're going to see how to get rid of some distractions in Photoshop. We're going to get rid of some distractions in Lightroom. So it depends on which one's easier. I'll always do it in Lightroom if it's easier because it's non-destructive. But if it's not easy to do in Lightroom, it's easier to do in Photoshop, I'll take it over to Photoshop, because why spend more time in Lightroom just because I'm in Lightroom? If I have Photoshop, they could do it faster, easier, maybe even better. So this is a case for Photoshop. This would take way too long to try and use the spot removal tool or the healing brush in Lightroom to try and do this. This would be so much faster in Photoshop. So how do I get to Photoshop from Lightroom? I've shown you this a million times. You can hit right click. You can also do a keyboard shortcut. I'm going to choose right click, edit in Photoshop, or this would be on the Mac Command E, on Windows Control E. Now when I do that, if it's a RAW file, if it's a JPEG, I'm sorry, scratch the RAW file. If it's a JPEG, TIFF, PSD, something that's not a RAW file, this message will pop up. If it's a RAW file, it won't pop up because it's just going to automatically make a copy. But because this is a PSD, this was already edited except for the fence being removed, it's asking me, do you want to edit a copy of it with any adjustments you've made in Lightroom? Do you just want to edit a copy of the original without the adjustments in Lightroom? Or do you want to edit the original? I almost never, ever, 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 never choose this one. And I can't remember when the last time I would choose edit a copy without my adjustments. So if this dialog pops up, I'm always choosing this one. Now, the only time, I take that back. The only time I would edit an original, if I had already gone to Photoshop, done a retouch, came back, noticed something was still wrong with it, then yeah, I'm going to edit the original to get back to the layers in the Photoshop file. So yeah, that would be one time I would do edit original. But I don't do edit original on like a JPEG that's never been edited in Photoshop at all. I always edit a copy. All right, so now that will edit a copy, and now we're in this particular image. Now, I don't normally duplicate the background layer. I know a lot of people like scream if you don't, because the reason you're duplicating the background layer is because you want to be able to get back to it if you make any mistakes. I already have the original back in Lightroom if I make any mistakes. So I'm not saying I'm perfect, by no means, but I am saying that duplicating the original again is an extra step I just don't do. But I'm going to do it for you. Just drag this down to the new layer icon, and that'll create a copy. All right, so now that we've done that, first step is getting rid of the, oh, well, I shouldn't say first step. My first step is going to be getting rid of the bob wire. I could try and get rid of it all at once. I can get rid of it in sections. I can get rid of it, several different tools and techniques to do it. But for this one, since the background is pretty easy, meaning it's snow or it's the fur or mane or hair, that's pretty easy to use the spot healing brush on. Now, I can do the spot healing brush a few different ways. First of all, I could go grab it wherever it is. There it is. I can go grab it. Notice my brush is big enough for the wire, but it's not big enough for these little barbs. So I'm just going to make my brush a little bigger using the right bracket key. And one way to do it is I can just simply paint. So just painting along with the brush, trying not to miss spots. And then when I get there and let go, it'll just do it. That was easy. All right, undo. Another way to use this tool is if you're doing wires, they tend to be in like a straight line. Even they might be at an angle, but they're like pretty much a straight line. You can go in and just click, hold down your shift key and click, and that will create a straight line for you and execute the command. So, sorry about that, folks. My occupancy sensor went off. All right, anyway, so that's one way to do it. I can also go in and just simply click again and go here to the other side and click again and just let it do its thing, and there we go. So it is pretty much easy enough to do it that way as long as your brush is big enough. All right, now the next thing is this post. So I could make a brush big enough to probably get rid of that post, but I want to do it easier. It's probably easier to use the patch tool or content aware fill or any other several ways to do it. So I'm just going to grab my patch tool and just draw a quick selection around. I could use the object selection tool too, but just a quick loose selection around it. And now that I've done that, the reason I like the patch tool is because when you drag it up, down, left, right, whatever direction you drag it in, it will show you a preview of it doing it. So we can see what it's going to look like. So if I'm too high up or too low down, it will show me that I'm not lining up with the horizon of the snow. And so there we go. So I can just get rid of it that easily. So now we're just focused on the majestic beast in front of us. We're not looking, and even if you go look at some of the snow, you come back to the animal. So it's like I could see maybe this little bit of a hump up here where there's, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was naturally occurring, but I can get rid of that little bit of hump of snow. And now there is nothing distracting me. I'm concentrating on the actual animal. Now, there could be things about the animal that are distracting, like blemishes or little spots or whatever. That would be your next area. So like these little things under the neck here, or on the neck, under the chin, and just little things that, you know, now I'm nitpicking, but that was pretty much it. I got rid of the biggest distraction. All right, bottom right hand corner. Yep, there we go. Thanks. I saw that from Carissa over on Facebook. Thank you. Bottom right hand corner. Good eye. Get rid of that distraction. All right. And see, that's what I meant. What Carissa just did, and someone, Roger, just said the same thing, is you start looking at other things. You start, once you get rid of one big distraction, then you start looking for other distractions, which is great, because then that means you're going to get rid of them. So I would have missed that one in the bottom right, but two people caught it, and you're right. That was a distraction. Now, that way I'm not looking at anything else in the scene. I'm looking at what I'm supposed to be looking at, which is the subject. Okay, so that would be this one. So this is the before. That's the after. Before, after, and do whatever other cleanup you'd want to do. But at this point, we got rid of the distractions. Okay, the main ones at least. You could argue the sky wasn't a distraction because it was too bland. You could argue that, you know, it could be more sharper. So we look at the eyes. Those are, again, all valid things, but I can't spend all the time on one image. But yes, you could go further and whatever else is distracting you. And James said it right. Once you see a distraction, you can't unsee it. And you spend time looking at the distraction instead of the subject. Okay, here's another one, because one of the, we got rid of the distraction using a couple Photoshop techniques, and cool, but sometimes a simple crop might be enough. Like something's coming in on the edge, and you might, Mimi saying, you have taught me to be so observant. Good, because again, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So if a crop will do it, great. But you got to also ask yourself, is the thing you're cropping worth giving up that whole edge of the image for? So if you say, yes, that edge of the image is not important, crop away. But if you say, well, I'm going to lose a lot of the image just to get rid of that piece, then you might use some of the Photoshop techniques instead. So I'll give you an example here. So let's go into this one. Let's go full screen. There's a few, this is the untouched original. So there's a few distractions in here. First of all, this was in a very wet environment. This was a waterfall in a little cavern type cave area. So there's water drops on my lens. Those are distractions, absolutely. But there's a red jacket and hand, and because I was doing a long exposure, so this person kind of came in the frame and went out. And this is what I meant by I could crop that off. So let's take a look at what that would look like. Let's go to crop. I hit the letter R in Lightroom Classic and letter C in regular Lightroom. And if I do that, yeah, that works. I could argue that that even recomposes it a little bit better, and that we didn't lose anything super important by cropping that off. I'm okay with that crop. But if you weren't okay with that crop, then you would go into Photoshop and remove that person using one of the content-aware techniques. So that's your choice. Again, if I looked at this image now and I'd never known that it was cropped, I'd be fine with it. Like I wouldn't think, hey, what's missing over there on the right-hand side? Because then that becomes a distraction too. If you think something should be there that's not. So I would never think that something's missing, that this image got cropped. All right, but anyway, let's go back. Let's undo the crop. There we go. And now let's deal with some of the other things here. So let's go to Command E. Let's open this up in Photoshop. It was a raw image, so it just opened right away because it's going to make a copy anyway. And then I might crop again. I might not. Actually, I kind of like the crop, to be honest. So I might crop that. But if I were going to try and remove it, then I would try and do something like this. I just come all the way around it with a selection. I'm not going to patch it. I just use the patch tool as a lasso. And then I'm just going to hit delete. That brings up the content aware fill, or the fill dialog box, which I have it set for content aware. And then I just click OK and see what happens. It did it fine. Like I could probably zoom in, clean up a little bit more, but I'm okay with that. Like it did it. And yeah, see, now I'm going to be looking at the little specks here. So that might be more of a distraction. So let's get rid of some of those. I'm just dragging them down into the darker, plainer area so that I'm not seeing this stuff. Okay, cool. I'm okay with that. But these water spots definitely have to go. Now, to be honest, there's a ton of water spots. You're just not seeing them all because of they're blending into the waterfall. So you could spend a good hour, at least I think I did on the original, getting rid of all the different water spots. So I'm just going to use the spot removal tool and just click. Because or the spot healing brush. It's great for removing spots like this. So just kind of getting them all out of there. At least all the ones I see. And again, you'll spend some time going back and forth on this image. Because as soon as you walk away from it and come back, you'll see some more. And I by no means got rid of them all, but then there's a little thing down here, whatever that is. Let's get rid of that. And I know that I didn't get them all. It looks like I got rid of at least most of them, if not all of them. But you'd zoom in, like, oh, here's one. You'd zoom in, spend some time, make sure you got them all, and then just keep coming back and getting them all, like getting the rest. So you might zoom in, because if you zoom in a different level, you might see some that you didn't see zoomed out. Like I see one up there that I didn't see zoomed out. Let's take care of that one. That's not a good spot removal. So let's do it again. There we go. That's better. See, once you zoom in, you see other ones that you didn't see zoomed out. All right. And just like I said, this is more of just being more observant, just taking your time and making sure you, like now I'm seeing some in here that I kind of think are water spots now. Just taking your time and just keep looking at this image. Like go away from it, come back, look at it again. Go away from it, come back, look at it again. Have someone else look at it, see if they see any spots, so forth and so on. So that's kind of how this one would work. Like I said, I know there's more in here that I'm just not seeing, but if I don't see them, then they don't exist. So just have other people look at it, say, hey, do you see any spots? Show them what the original spots look like. Have the kids go through it, look for spots, because they'll do it, and just see if they see anything else. Now, that was getting rid of the major stuff. I can nitpick it and get rid of a few more little things, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. And this image could probably use a little toning and retouching as well, but we're talking about removing distractions mostly today. So that's it. All right. Let's save this one, close it. And when I go back to Lightroom, this is what I meant by I have the original still. So if I made a huge mistake, if I screwed up and want to start over, I have the original, and then I have this one. So I have that way, since I didn't crop it, I didn't lose any image area either. So that image area wasn't important. I could have cropped it, but now I still have the full size of the image, getting rid of those distractions. Okay, next up. Let's go here. This is another image in Iceland of this kind of church off in the distance here. I was like standing down on another highway when I took this. And there's a few distractions here. Now, some of the obvious ones is you could argue that the cars are distractions, the van, whatever these things are, the SUVs, those are distractions. But let's fix some of the stuff that is even distracting me just from looking at this image. Some of the image editing stuff. Let's go in. There we go. And let's it is Adobe Landscape already. Let's hit Auto Tone. There we go. See that even the colors were off. That was a distraction for me. All right, so now that I got the colors kind of where I need them to be, let's go to lens corrections. Let's enable lens profile correction, because some of the bowing that caused this little dip in the image at the top here can be resolved quickly by just enabling your lens profile correction if it knows which lens you shot this with. Take some of the curvature out. And I'm already feeling better about this image. Let's continue though, and let's talk about those distractions. So let's hit Command E, Control E on Windows, and that will bring up the image. Now, I was moving this around because I didn't know if that white speck was on my screen or that was really in the image. I don't know what that white speck is. It could be a bird, but whatever it is, it's not big enough to see it, so therefore it's a distraction. All right. Now let's deal with these cars. I could try this just to see what happens. I'm curious, just using the same spot healing tool. And it's picking up stairs and other things there. I could try another pass at it. Yeah, okay, I'm cool with that. Sometimes it works. This little road sign, whatever that is, that can go. It's not adding anything to the story. It just becomes a distraction, because then people say, well, what's that sign blocking? What road is that blocking? Why is it blocking a road? So forth and so on. All right, yeah, cool. Spot healing tool, one of my favorite tools of all time in Photoshop, for the reasons you're seeing right now. It's just easy to get rid of distractions. I'm not even using a stylus. I'm just using this. Now, now I start arguing, well, that railing's like kind of angled up now, and that makes it look weird. So then I'd probably zoom in and try and fix that, because that was a result of the spot heal that didn't do it perfectly straight. So that becomes my next distraction. So what I might do in that case is I might grab my clone stamp tool, hold down my Option or Alt key, make my brush a little bit bigger. Hold down my Option or Alt key to lock it in right on the straight part of the railing, right there. Come over. Now that's going to give me an alignment of the railing, so keep the railing straight, and then just come over here and start lining it back up. Now I ran out of room, so let's do it again. Let's start way back here. That often happens when you don't plan with the clone stamp tool. You end up running out of room. And there we go. That straightens that out quite nicely. All right. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. I meant to do that. All right. Yeah. Now, then I start nitpicking and start looking at other things like, okay, let's go to the church itself. And it's like, it's got these white spots on the roof. And I know that's the way the church looks. But do I need it to look that way in my photo? Probably not. So then I start cleaning up the roof. So forth and so on. I'm just doing a quick job. You'd zoom in and do a better job. But then you got up here, same kind of thing. Because then people start saying, well, when was the last time they painted the roof of the church? So again, things you don't want people having to question. All right, now, the other thing that's bugging me now is because I can see it up here at the top of the mountain. Like you can see kind of the sun kind of washing out that top part of the mountain, which that's the way it would normally look. But it's also washed out the top of this roof. So what I might do is I might go in and let's go ahead and duplicate this layer just for giggles. And let's go ahead and make it a smart, convert for smart filters. And now that we've done that, let's go ahead and run the camera raw filter on it. and bring the camera raw filter over to this display. And what I might do is I might zoom in and I might grab my masking capability. Yeah, let's use color range. Okay, so I'm going to click on color range. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag out the color of this roof. And that should, yeah, mask it pretty nicely. So that's the new masking is phenomenal. I love it. All right, anyway, so that masked out the roof color that I wanted. And actually the mask looks great, but that's not the real color. So now I can go in and I could just go in and do things like change the roof color to a different red or make it more saturated. So I could do that. I could also just go in and just crank up the saturation of it because it's got washed out. So let's put some of the saturation back in to that red color. Okay, so now that we've done that, that's kind of looking much better. It's like less of a distraction. And I might go in now. Let's zoom out. And I might create another mask. And okay, first let's name this one. We should always name our masks to remember what they are. Roof, oh, hang on. Rooftop. All right, and then we might go and create another mask. And this one, we're going to just do the brush. And we're just going to brush up here. All it's doing is just masking it. I haven't done anything to it yet. Just masking that area. And I can do the same kind of thing where I just want to kind of take out some of that dullness that the sun is creating naturally. So I could make it more saturated. I could also change the temperature to cool it off a little bit or warm it up, whatever looks better. I could even adjust the tint of it so it's greener from this perspective. So that just making the grass a little greener over there. Is there a difference between completing this step in Photo Raw or just using Lightroom? No, this particular step, there's no different. You could have done this step right in Lightroom, but I was already in Photoshop, so that's why I did it here. But yeah, there's no functional difference whatsoever. This is the same panel for masking that you would get and the same camera raw features you would get in the develop module of Lightroom. All right, so now let's click OK on that, and that gives me my before and my after. I don't know what happened to my mountain. My mountain didn't. Did it do it? Let's wait for it to turn on. Oh, it did it. Okay. I was getting some weird delays too. But anyway, I can close that, save it, keep that layer in case I ever want to go back and make changes to it. And that will take a few more seconds to save because it is saving an image that is bigger. So if you look over here in the bottom right, that's what I'm waiting, or bottom left, that's what I'm waiting for, is that saving to finish. And what else is there a question? Is there any of the working methods preferable of how the image should be used, print or web? Nicholas, you're asking a good question. So Nicholas is basically saying, is there going to be a difference if you're doing this stuff for print or if you're doing it for web? Yes and no, meaning that I'm working on the highest resolution of the image I have. So whether I'm print or web, that would be great. Web, obviously, it's going to get downsized. If I'm doing this for web, the only thing, which means on screen, the only thing that I might be conscious of is if I add texture or sharpening, how much, because a low resolution web file will look much more sharp than a high resolution print. So it might be over sharpened is what I'm saying if you try and sharpen it for web and you do too much. Golden Gate in San Francisco. I don't know if that question's for me, but this church is in Iceland. This is definitely not San Francisco. So that question's probably not for me. All right, now the savings cranking along. Dun, 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 dun. All right, you guys are having a conversation about Chicago and different places, so not related to this image. I probably should have rebooted before I did this class because things are taking way longer than they ever do. So something is dragging. And nothing else is open. Okay. Like even this save is taking forever now. It normally never would take this long. But we'll give it another few seconds. Actually, we don't have to wait. We can go on to the next image. We don't have to wait for that. All right. Here's an obvious one. I wanted the light on the subject, so I had to put the light up there near the subject while I got down off that rocky mountainous area, and I came way back, away from the subject and took the shot. Well, obviously then that leaves the light box in the shot, and the backpack that's holding it down to keep it from blowing away, and all that stuff's in the shot that doesn't need to be there. So again, this is a case where I'm not going to do this. I'm not even going to try and do this in Lightroom. I'm going to do this in Photoshop, because Lightroom is just, the tool in it is nowhere near as good as the tool that we would get in the choice of tools we would get in Photoshop. All right, this is just taking forever. I think I'm just going to kill it. All right, let me see if it'll open with this. If not, we'll kill. Oh, it opened anyway. Okay, so it can keep saving that other image forever. I don't care. All right, so this one opened up, and again, I got the beautiful light on the subject that I wanted, but this light box now has to go. So I could take it out piece by piece. So I can get rid of the big circle at the top, the octagon at the top, get rid of the pole, get rid of the stand, so forth and so on. But actually, I found that sometimes you just don't need to do that much work and you'll get the same result. So in other words, I'm going to do this in one big step and know that I might have to do some cleanup. That's all. So I'm going to take, again, I could use whatever lasso kind of tool I want. I'll just use a regular lasso. And I'm just going to go ahead. Now, again, I could use the object selection tool. So let me show you the difference. If I use the, if I use the object selection tool, first of all, I have Object Finder turned on, so it's going to try and identify all the objects in the frame. But I'm just going to go ahead and say, no, select this. So it selects it fast. It's much faster than the lasso. But the thing about the Object Selection tool is that it's going to select the object tightly. And while you might say, well, okay, what's wrong with that? When you do a content-aware fill, a tightly selected object will leave more stuff behind than a loosely selected object. So that's why I make a nice loose selection around the thing I'm trying to get rid of, because Photoshop does a better job of filling it in than a tight selection. So I'll show you the difference since I got this selected. Let's say we were to go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and do content-aware fill. And maybe content-aware fill's gotten better and it's going to do a great job. But it didn't. So it left, you could see the shape clearly. You can see the edges because the edges were so tight. So let's undo, get rid of that selection. And by the way, you could do object select and you go to the select menu and expand the selection by 20 pixels, 30 pixels, whatever, to make the selection more broad. You could do it that way too. But I've just gotten in the habit of just simply taking a quick lasso around it. Since I don't have to be very tight and close, I can do this fairly quickly. And get something like this. So whichever method you think is better for you, choose the selection method you want. Oh, and I missed part of the strap here. So I held down the shift key and just circled the part I missed. And I got too much of this rock here, so I'm just going to subtract some of that out by holding down the Option or Alt key and subtracting these pieces out of the selection, just like that. So you can play with the selection. Shift always adds to a selection. Option or Alt always removes or subtracts from a selection. Okay, now let's, could you also have used a plate shot for that one? A plate shot. I'm not sure what a plate shot is. All right, so let's go ahead and delete or backspace. Content-aware fill, click OK. And because it's not so tight around the edges, I don't end up with those edges. So that's why I said I don't use the object select for content-aware fill, because content-aware fill prefers more space around the thing you're trying to get rid of to do a better job of filling it in. Now, at this point, at first glance, especially if I zoomed out, you would never know that thing was there. But I can see a few giveaways. I can see definitely one big one. This right here. So this is a dead giveaway that something's not right, because it starts with an indent in the rock, then it goes to smooth, and it goes back to an indent, and it kind of continues that pattern all the way down. So that kind of tells the viewer if they're, because that could then become your distraction. See how it goes up the same way? That can become your distraction because people are like, wait, does something used to be there? Like, why is the rock look smooth or blurred down that one spot? So that's where you go in with your patch tool or your clone stamp, whichever you prefer. And you go in and you just kind of like patch that stuff out so that you don't have a very visible pattern in your scene. All right, so same thing here. I could kind of see something going on there, and maybe I pull it over here to kind of get rid of it. And same thing going on right here. I can kind of see it. And again, I'm looking for it. Like the average person would never even notice it, but I'm looking for it because I do know something used to be there. And I'm just making sure that what used to be there got removed nicely, as opposed to leaving these kind of artifacts and things behind that some person might actually see. So I know the backpack used to be over here, and it had to do a lot of fill in to make this work. The same thing. There we go. And you might see more. You might see other things that you say, hey, I can see there's a pattern or there's something funky with that spot. And you just continue to repair the spots. But that's it. So the light's gone. I still have the effect of the light, but without the actual light there. Oh, sure. Yeah. You could have done that. So Mike's saying, could I have taken a shot of the model without the light and then taken a shot with the light there and then just use the shot without the light to use that to fill in? Yeah. If I'd have thought of that up front while I was taking the shot, sure. You could absolutely do it that way. But a lot of distraction removal is after the fact because you weren't planning on upfront of what you needed to do. But yeah, that would have actually been the preferred way, because then I would have a clean background with no light stand that was ever there. And I would use that to just composite the two together. One with the subject with the light, like just cut it literally in half, put the other half in, done. Especially if you were shooting on a tripod. That would be the other kind of, you want to do that to keep things perfectly aligned. All right, next up. Okay, we're, again, find any other distractions that are bothering you in this photo, but that was the main one. Let's go ahead and save this. And let's close it. Oh, now it's saving two documents. There's something going on with this document, I swear. Like, it's still stuck in the same spot. So something weird's happening with that document. But anyway, we'll let that keep going since it's not stopping me. All right, next up. So what's going on here? This is a easy fix for Lightroom, because what's distracting me is whatever this is in the sky or the water or whatever we're looking at in the background. I think that's water. But whatever we're seeing here, this poking into the image is the distraction. So quick right click, or right click, a quick R on the keyboard for crop, and we just crop that off. There we go. No more distracting thing poking into the image that takes away from the image. And of course, then you go and do all the other things you want to do this image to make it look better, cleaner, so forth and so on. But that's getting rid of that main distraction. Then you got a little blade of grass there that kind of standing out because it looks kind of white and not green like the rest of the grass around it. So I might go in, take the spot healing brush here in Lightroom and just click on it and tell it where to pull from so that kind of lines up. There we go. And that was my main distraction in this photo. And you could be even more nitpicky and start cleaning up this stuff, but that stuff doesn't bother me. That's not really a distraction. That's going to kind of lead back to the subject because it's not enough of it to distract me. It's just going to go ahead and do that. All right, so now let's go ahead, and that was just an easy fix in Lightroom. All right, so next one, we've got just a bunch of people on our beach. Now, maybe the people are there for that you want, but since everyone's kind of looking away from the camera, I'm going to guess that the person took this picture and just wanted to get a shot of the beach, and these people are just distractions because they're not the subject. Unless you just wanted a picture of people, random people on the beach, then they are the subject. But if that's not what you wanted, the beach is the subject, then you need to get rid of all these people. So let's quickly go in. Let's edit a copy. And let's see if Photoshop opens it. Photoshop may need some force quitting here. Nope, it opened it, so I'll just keep going. Photoshop just keeps stacking up images that never get saved. All right, anyway, and by the way, I wouldn't keep doing this if those saves were important to me. Like, I'm never going to use those images, so I don't care if they ever save. If they weren't important to me, then I would absolutely force quit Photoshop and start over. So let's show you what that would look like. I would say, hey, Photoshop seems to be stuck. Let's right click on it and hold down our Option or Alt key and force quit it. And now that we've gotten out of Photoshop, and again, I probably lost the saves on those images, which I don't care. But if I did care, then I wouldn't have kept going. I wouldn't have kept doing multiple images. All right, so now let's edit another copy. That should relaunch Photoshop. And let's see if it's relaunching. Yep, I see it bouncing there. It's relaunching. And dun, 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 dun. Still launching. Something's definitely going on. Maybe I should have left it open. Oh, that time when you need to do a reboot. Because this is absolutely not normal behavior, folks. So I might just go ahead and take a few seconds to reboot and answer some questions. Because it definitely should not be taking this long. Like, Photoshop launches in like 3 seconds. So let's just quit out of all of this. Let's force quit Photoshop again. And I'll go back to me while I reboot. All right, hey everybody, how's it going? Things happen sometimes. This is what happens when you're live. Restart. And we'll just let this computer reboot. All right. Sam says, that's been my computer lately. Get a Windows PC. Why? They never have any issues. They never crash either. So people always say that when they see something happen on your platform, like their platform never has one. I have several Windows PCs over there, and they have issues too. But nice try. Anyway, the garbage on the beach, yep, good call. That's if I wanted to keep the people, I would get rid of the garbage. And let's go ahead and sign back in. All right, computer's back. And signing in. Turn it off and turn it on, fixes everything. Most of the time, not all the time, but yeah. A lot of the times it does fix most of what we're trying to do. All right, computer's coming back up. And just give it a second to load what it needs to load. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry, I have some background processes that are also loading. That might be part of the problem. Come on. There we go. It's coming. It's getting there. All right. As soon as I get back in, yep, there's the last one. Should be good to go now. I lied. There's one more. There we go. Let's go ahead and get these relaunched. All right. There we go. Things are launching as fast as they should now. Perfect. All right, let's get back to it. There's Photoshop. Let's put Photoshop back where it was. And let's go back here. And let's go ahead and edit this image. Yes, edit a copy. Comes right over to Photoshop quickly, like it should, like it usually does. And now we can go ahead and zoom in and decide what we want. So if the trash was what you were really trying to get rid of, that's an easy one. Just get rid of the trash with patch, spot healing brush, clone stamp, whatever method you like. I would probably use a bigger brush on this, but there we go. And then we start getting the stuff that needs to kind of stay aligned. So I would probably go ahead and use the patch tool on this. And look, I was able to get back to a working computer without having to buy a new one. That's great. All right, same thing, this thing encroaching into the frame, whatever this is. Just patch it out. And now you're left with people. So you start asking yourself, I don't know, this lady looking off to the left, do we need that lady there? Probably not. She's not crucial to the story. She's more of a distraction. And so I can go ahead and just paint her out. And clean up anything that didn't get painted out correctly. Same thing with the kids here. She's kind of looking at those kids. Getting rid of the people in the water is easy, fast. There we go. All right. So the other thing you want to make sure of whenever you're doing this stuff on a beach, if you're going to take someone and remove them or move them or do something to them on the beach, make sure you also account for their reflection in the sand. Because if there's a reflection in the sand, you don't take that away as well, then it's a dead giveaway that something used to be there, because we still see the reflection even though the person is gone. So I'm going to say that this lady who's now kidless, she probably doesn't need to be there either because her kids are gone. And so now I have that one subject, if that were my subject. Now, I'm pretending that that's my subject. But if that's my subject, it's a distraction that he or she, I can't even tell, I think it's she, so small in the frame. Because you almost like, is that a mistake? Was that really meant to be there? Was she supposed to be there? Was she part of the photograph? You start asking those questions because the subject is so small. So if I'm going to pretend and not get rid of the person, let's say that that was the shot, then what I would do also is I would not do it to that ratio. Let's clear it. I would go ahead and recompose the shot with a quick crop. There we go. So that that person isn't lost in the frame, if that's my subject. In other words, you want to make your subject stand out more. Now, the only last thing I would check is to make sure the horizon line is not crooked, because I can't stand a crooked horizon line either. So I would go in, grab my crop one more time. Actually, I could use the straighten tool right here. There's a straighten tool right here in Photoshop, and I would just make sure, because I'm eyeballing it so I can't really tell, I just drag the straighten tool along this edge, and it tilted it ever so slightly to make it straight. So now, that becomes my new straightened image. All right, there we go. So that would be the better shot if that person was supposed to be the subject, because you want the subject to not be so small that they, see how quick that saved? You want the subject to be not so small that we don't see them at all. All right, so now if we go back, this was our before, our messy beach scene that there is no subject. It's just a bunch of random stuff going on, to, oh, there's somebody standing there looking at the beach that we either care or don't care about. but that becomes our subject. All right, let's see if I have time. I don't have time really for one more, but just something to think about on this shot. So you got to ask yourself, are you trying to take a picture of a person with looking at the water with their back to you that we don't really know who it is? If that's your subject, great. If not, remove her from the bench. Keep the bench. And then crop down on the image so that we don't see whatever this little thing is in the upper left corner. So we just kind of end up with something like that. And I would probably even recompose it some more, crop it just a little bit more like this, so that we don't see so much foreground and we don't end up with just a bunch of foreground for no reason. Oh, but keep in mind, now if we're going to crop, we also have to get rid of this reflection. So I probably would just go into Photoshop and take this out, this whole thing out, because I don't want to keep cropping down and losing the reflection of the trees, even though I could. If I keep cropping down, then I end up with something like that. It's okay, but it would be better to keep more of the trees reflecting in the water and see that duck or whatever that is starting to get lost. So I would probably just go take the whole thing out in Photoshop, reflection and all. All right, that's my time, everybody. I am out of time, but hopefully I've given you some food for thought for removing distractions from your photos going forward. Next up, we either have a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge or Jason Levine. I can't remember who's next. Usually it's a Daily Creative Challenge. Cheers, everybody. Thank you, and we'll catch you on the next one.